You're listening to the Cancer Game Plan Podcast, episode 26.
Welcome to the Cancer Game Plan Podcast, where inspiring cancer warriors share their stories. So whether you're newly diagnosed, in the thick of treatment, or now in remission, you're in the right place. And now, here's your host, Christina Soto.
Hey there, Cancer Warriors. Christina Soto here, and welcome to the Cancer Game Plan Podcast. I am so excited you are here, and I cannot thank you enough for joining us. Today, we have a very special guest who is going to be sharing her cancer story with us, Christine Magnus Moore. Welcome to the show, Christine. I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you, Christina. I am just thrilled to be here with you.
Christine has worked in the nursing field for over 25 years, with more than 14 of them in oncology, specifically adult and pediatric bone marrow transplant, and also has a master's certification in caring for teenagers and young adults with cancer. But aside from caring for cancer warriors, Christine is also a 12-year non-Hodgkin lymphoma survivor herself. Her book titled Both Sides of the Bedside, From Oncology Nurse to Patient, An RN's Journey with Cancer, is on track to be published in early 2015. Christine now dedicates her time to giving back to her fellow cancer warriors. She is a board member of the California Southland branch of the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society and is the chairman for a young adult cancer survivor group called LLS SoCal Cancer Connection. She is also a co-founder and board member for a nonprofit cancer comfort organization called YANA, You Are Not Alone. But before we get into all that, we'd really like to start the show off by setting the scene a bit. So, Christine, can you tell us a little bit about what you were up to before getting the big C?
Sure. Before getting the big C, I was an emergency room nurse working 12-hour shifts, and I had a second job at an outpatient surgery center as a nurse. I was a very active person. I was very active socially. I had tons of friends. I'd go out a lot. I had a boyfriend, a fairly new relationship. I did spin classes regularly. I was adventurous and had traveled to Europe right before I got sick. And I actually did a 50-mile bike race right before I was diagnosed as well.
So it sounds like you had a really active life. Everything was going good. So what was it that led you to your doctor's office or made you think I should probably get something checked out?
I was starting to have some fatigue, and then I started to have some night sweats. But honestly, I thought I was in denial. I just thought, well, I'm working too hard. I rationalized it. I'm an ER nurse. Of course I'm tired. I have 2 jobs. Of course I'm tired. Then I was in the shower one day and I noticed a golf ball sized lump in my left groin that basically sprung up out of nowhere. I went to the doctor and then needed to see a surgeon for a biopsy. And then I went in for a biopsy. And when I woke up in the recovery room, I saw the bright lights of the recovery room. I saw nurses walking by. And then I saw my surgeon walk up to me. He was wearing a suit and tie. And he looked at me with very sad eyes. And he told me that I had non-Hodgkin lymphoma. I immediately burst into tears, and I grabbed his tie and pulled him close to me and told him to hug me, and I was devastated.
Nobody's ever prepared to hear the words you have cancer, and as a nurse, you probably understood a little bit more of the implications, being that you were an oncology nurse especially. What were you thinking at that moment? Aside from the devastation, what was going through your head at that moment?
At that moment, I knew that my life would change forever. And I felt that I was struck down by the enemy. You know, for years of my life, I had helped cancer patients. I'd given multiple amounts of chemotherapy to people. I helped them during, major surgeries, dealing with cancer, bone marrow transplants, cancer patients. And so I just was devastated completely and in complete shock, thinking that now I was a cancer patient.
I can only imagine. So once you learned about your cancer, what was the proposed treatment your doctor recommended for you? And was it something that you felt comfortable with?
My treatment was to have originally my doctor said 6 to 8 treatments of chemotherapy. It's called CHOP. Plus I was to have Rituxan, which is a monoclonal antibody, which specifically targets the cancer cell, the B lymphocyte cell. And that was to be given the second week after I'd have my chemotherapies, which every 3 weeks I had chemo, and then that second week I had the Rituxan. I ended up having 8 cycles of chemotherapy. And was I comfortable? I would say I was extremely familiar with the chemotherapy because obviously, as I've said, I've given the chemotherapy countless times to other people. But I would never say I was comfortable knowing that I had to get chemotherapy myself.
Definitely, especially somebody who has seen the effects it has on people. You're aware of the side effects. You're aware of the difficulties. Sometimes a little protection for us that are new to the cancer world can be we don't really know that much. We may have heard of the side effects, but we've never seen them. And somebody who's seen them up close, I can only imagine it could be a little bit harder, being that you could put a picture to what was being told to you. So how did having this treatment schedule affect your day-to-day life? What were the things it impacted and you had to change?
Oh, it affected my life enormously in every way. Basically, when I would get chemotherapy, I would be nausea and vomiting for a good 4 days afterwards. I could barely eat or drink, and sometimes I'd have to go back into the doctor's office for a hydration IV. I lost, over the course of my treatment, 20 pounds, which I didn't need to lose. I had a portacath sticking out of my chest. I was bald. I was on disability, so I wasn't working. And I was fatigued beyond anything I ever had experienced. I mean, from going from a 50-mile bike race to sometimes, honestly, barely being able to walk up a flight of stairs. I took hordes of pills, which normally I wasn't a pill-type taking person. And actually, the chemotherapy threw me into menopause as well. So it affected everything. And emotionally, I was depressed and, dealing with anxiety, and it just affected everything in a not so fun way.
Definitely. I remember those days getting chemotherapy. Even, when you try your best to be really positive, it can be such a struggle because you do feel so sick. You are so tired and you can't do the things that you were so used to before. So, having this really overnight shift can be so hard for so many of us. So it's really important to have people and a support system there for you. So what did your support system look like, and where did you turn to help you through these difficult times?
I felt as if God gave me a multitude of people to help me through this. I had incredible support from my family, from friends, from my coworkers. They were unbelievable. They even brought me a artificial tree with tied ribbons of inspirational notes and their care and support. The church, actually, people at church were amazing, just praying for me and continually just supporting me. So I'd say even though I was going through the most horrific time in my life, I felt the most love that I ever felt from so many people. So that was kind of the dichotomy of cancer, really.
That's so nice to have all those people just surround you and give you that love and support that you need during this time. And if you can build that support system to just be there around you, even if you don't have maybe family and friends around, getting that support from outside sources like a support group or from a volunteer organization can make all the difference. So once you're a cancer patient and your role has really shifted from oncology nurse caregiver, was that really difficult for you to make that transition, and how did you navigate that change in identity?
It was extremely difficult. I actually was angry for a while there, not wanting to associate that I was a cancer patient. I would be in the chemo room and not really wanting to, sounds bad, but associate with people because I was younger. I was 38 when I was diagnosed, and, most of them were much older in their 60s and 70s and such. So there was a big shift, difference there, but also I didn't want to admit that I was one of them, but I was. And eventually I went to support group. I actually went to a breast cancer support group because they didn't have one my age for my diagnosis. And just being around other people was extremely helpful who had cancer and who, or who had lived the life of a cancer patient. But it definitely was a dichotomy of a different life. When I received chemo, it just felt so foreign and odd, and it actually caused me quite a bit of anxiety. I remember one of my lowest points was driving. I didn't drive. Someone was driving me to the cancer center for my 4th chemotherapy infusion, and knowing what experiences of how sick I was prior to that with chemo and knowing what I was driving toward, I started to become very, very anxious. And normally I was very even keel, not anxious type of a person. And I started just uncontrollably shaking, bawling, crying uncontrollably. I started dry heaving, and I just couldn't stop myself. So I basically stumbled into the cancer center to my doctor's office, and my nurse, I sat down on one of the chemo lounge chairs, and she handed me a Valium, which I took immediately, and did some deep breaths. And the patients in the chemo room were cheering me and, giving me really positive and calming and soothing thoughts. And I got a hold of myself and got my chemo that day. And after that, my nurse said, the doctor wants to see you. And he sat me down. And him and I had worked together years ago when I was an oncology nurse. So that was another whammy on top of it was, him and I were side by side working with cancer patients. And now he was my doctor, my oncologist. So there's many weird twists to this, but he sat me down and he actually said those words. He said, I think it's harder for you going through this as an oncology nurse, having seen so much and taken care of so many people that had cancer. And that really just was a light bulb moment for me. It soothed my soul hearing that. And I was able to kind of shift my head in a different space and just think that I was going to look at this more as an adventure with humor, and I was going to embrace the feelings of being a cancer patient and allow myself to feel the grief.
After that shift in mindset, did you find your future treatments and the rest of your journey, did you find that made a difference in it?
I did, yes. I wasn't necessarily not completely sick or nauseated, but it was much less. Yes, it was. It was a freeing feeling, if that makes sense.
I completely agree. And I had that same kind of moment around halfway through my treatment. I hit a wall, and it was the same thing. I couldn't go into that infusion center anymore. I actually told my doctor, I think I'm done. I don't want to do any more treatment. And I did have my physician's assistant sit me down and just tell me very matter-of-factly, you need to finish this. If you don't, it will come back, and that's not good. You have a very aggressive cancer. And, once he told me, go home and get your head straight and do what you need to do. I'll give you a 2-week break, and then, let's restart this. And during that time, I was desperate for anything that would help me shift my mindset. And I found that through the help of a yoga studio and a monk who taught me meditation. And once I worked with them and really decided to look at it differently, I decided that instead of the chemo, harming my body and making me feel sick, that this was going to cure my cancer and this was going to make me actually healthier and better. And that shift in mindset made my final treatments so much better. And like you said, I still was sick. I still wasn't feeling great, but they were much easier. And it doesn't make sense because chemo is cumulative. So The power of our mind, you can't ever underestimate that. But having that shift in mindset is such an important thing to do. And usually most of us kind of hit a point in our treatments where it's really low. And there's something that kind of helps us turn around. So if you're feeling low right now, try to find that thing to help you personally change your mindset about what you're going through. It can make all the difference. As you can see for myself and Christine, it does work. So, Christine, having this cancer diagnosis, I'm curious, how did this affect your future plans and goals for yourself? What did that change for you?
It affected everything. Obviously, I had a passion for cancer patients because I was a oncology nurse for many years, but I knew that I had an increased fervor and zest to help people through cancer. I knew immediately. And so what I did is, instead of going back into the emergency room after I was completed with my treatment, I ended up becoming a pediatric oncology intensive care unit nurse, and I helped kids with cancer. So that changed, and since then, I've been very busy. I wrote a book called Both Sides of the Bedside, From Oncology Nurse to Patient and RN's Journey with Cancer. And it's about my perspectives and dichotomy and the learning through my experiences. I also am very involved with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. As you mentioned, I'm on the board, and I started a young adult group for cancer patients and survivors. I write my own blog related to cancer, and I also have written articles for the I Had Cancer website, and I wrote an article for the Clinical Journal of Oncology Nursing, and I co-founded a cancer comfort organization called YANA, You Are Not Alone. And what we do is we send care packages for free all over the United States to cancer patients, and in them everything's handmade blanket, handmade cap, a scarf, and an inspirational devotional, and a little booklet of cancer survivor stories. And I also mentor cancer patients, which is one thing I absolutely love to do. So that's what I'm up to.
That's awesome. Those are really, really amazing things that you're doing, and so much that you're giving back to the wider cancer community. And it's so amazing that you're able to share what you know clinically or medically, but also from your own personal experience. Christine, can you tell us, when did you decide that you weren't going to let cancer run your life, that you were going to live your best life every day, even with cancer?
I would say when I finally was able to wrap my head around that it's okay to allow myself the feelings related to cancer. And not only for me to feel the feelings related to cancer, but also share my experiences and my story related to cancer. I think there's such a communion and a bond with people when you do that. And that's what I believe I'm called to do.
That is awesome. You truly have an amazing attitude. And I'm curious, what do you do now on a regular basis to kind of keep you in that positive space? Anything that you could share with us?
I really believe in prayer and just asking God where He wants me and what He wants me to do in life. And that motivates me. And I just feel incredibly blessed and so grateful and thankful for my life, for everything, having my sight, having my hearing. I just feel so thankful and grateful. And I really believe that God has blessed me through my trauma and through me doing what He's asking me to do in life, which is helping others on the cancer journey.
That's so awesome. It's so nice to have those things that we can do on a regular basis that kind of help us practice being positive, help us practice being grateful. So, whatever that is for you, prayer, meditation, helping others, it's such a great thing to practice that every single day. So, Christine, what would you say is the greatest lesson you learned from your experience with cancer?
There's so many. I would say one is definitely to allow other people to help you. I was a very independent lady. I was single, I was on my own, and it was quite a learning experience to allow others to help me, but there was a lot of blessing in allowing other people to help me because I was bringing in more love into my life. And also another thing is just to be mindful that tragedy can help us grow in amazing ways.
love how you said by allowing other people to help you, you're bringing more love into your life. That's a really awesome way of thinking about that. That is a great lesson. So, Christine, can you tell us any plans or projects on the horizon?
My book will be published in March, and I have a talk I'm going to be giving in the end of February to oncology nurses about my views and perspectives of being an oncology nurse and a cancer patient. So those are the big things lately, and just keep going on all of my things with Leukemia and Lymphoma Society and YANA and helping others who need help.
That is awesome. And where would we be able to find your book and also read your blog? Where could we go to find those?
My book will be on Amazon, and my blog, I have a Facebook page and I have a website, Both Sides of the Bedside. So my website is bothsidesofthebedside.com.
Awesome. We will definitely link to both of those. So, be sure to go and check those out. So, Christine, before I let you go, I do have 5 fun little questions I'd love to ask you. Are you ready?
Sure.
Awesome. What was your funniest cancer moment or a time you pulled the cancer card?
Okay. I remember when I was feeling better, going to the store, and I had 3 different wigs that I wore. And one of them that I loved, that I mainly wore, was long, straight hair, light brown. It was just really pretty. And I remember being at the store, and this guy walked up to me, and he was hitting on me. And I just had to laugh to myself, because what kept running through my mind was, buddy, you have no idea what's inside this package. So that was my humorous cancer moment to myself, probably more than anybody else.
Nice. Maybe it was the hair. That's awesome. So what would you say was the biggest thing holding you back from living your best life every day during cancer?
I would say anxiety. That was the biggest thing. Yeah.
I think almost every cancer warrior can relate with that. So what would you say is your favorite inspirational quote? Something that just really gets you fired up.
There's so many. I am a quote person, but one that stands out to me is from the Bible. It's Luke 1:37. For nothing is impossible with God.
Perfect. Super simple and great thing to keep in mind. If you could recommend just one book to your fellow cancer warriors, well, I'm going to say 2 because you have to recommend your own book. So if you could recommend just 2 books to your fellow cancer warriors, what would it be?
My book, because I go through the intense journey, and I think people could relate to it, but also it's an inspirational story. And I would recommend, it's an inspirational devotional. It's called the Jesus Calling Devotional, and it is just absolutely beautiful. Sarah Young writes it, and it is so uplifting. I absolutely love it.
Awesome. We'll definitely link to both of those books. And the last question I have for you is, what is one tip or piece of advice you would give to someone who is newly diagnosed with cancer?
I would say, again, allow people to help you get connected and pray.
That is such great advice. So perfect, and something we can all implement in our cancer journey to make things a little bit easier. Christine, thank you so much for taking the time to share your story with us today. We really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Christina, and thank you so much for what you do. I just think you're amazing, and you're a superstar, sharing your story, sharing other people's stories of hope and encouragement and healing. I think it's amazing. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. That's so sweet of you. You can find all the links to everything Christine and I discussed today over at the show notes page. Just go to www.thecancergameplan.com/Christine Magnus Moore, and Christine's show notes page will pop right up. So until next time, Cancer Warriors, remember to stay strong, keep fighting, and live in life.
Thanks for listening to the Cancer Game Plan podcast at www.thecancergameplan.com.